All right, welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Conversation. I'm here today with retired Chief Warrant Officer 4 or 5?
Yes.
4?
Sure.
4,
Yeah,
Rob
we can talk
Cloutier.
about that too. We can talk about the five.
Awesome. Oh yeah, we'll get into that. Um, Rob is a unique individual. He's unique in many ways, but he's unique to me because he, quite honestly, is one of the reasons I decided to become a chief warrant officer myself. Uh, After about 12 years in the Corps. So I worked with Rob at the Marine Corps Communications Electronics School at 29 Palms, where he was one of the. What was your official title?
Uh,
Academics
uh,
officer.
yeah, academics officer. Yeah,
Yeah, defining the
training
curriculum
officer,
for
academics
yep,
officer.
defining the curriculum for the students going through the school. Um, and Rob was an example to me that uh, made me feel like I could that was something I could do. I remember I was in boot camp in 93, well, 93, 94, because I was there for 5 months. And I got dropped to a medical platoon,
Yeah.
spent 2 months with the medical platoon. And we were practicing for graduation with my new platoon. Only like, I got dropped like 2 weeks right before graduation.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was close. The only thing I couldn't do was, I think it was the final fitness test I couldn't run. So they were like, you got to do that. Anyways, so part of the staff was just, I'm sure, people they just pull from the base to do the staff portion of the ceremony. And I remember seeing like this one dude who was like this crusty looking guy with this weird shit on his collar. I was like, I don't even know what that guy is. So, I don't, but that's cool. And then of course later on I learned he was a chief officer. Um,
Yeah.
and I after working at McSess with Rob, I came to realize that um, that was what I wanted to do. So I appreciate your example because I don't know where I'd be if I mean, it's interesting as you reflect back on your life that just that and sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big, but most of the time they're really small decisions you make that if you didn't do that, who knows how life would have turned out. So,
Yep. Yep.
anyways, not about me, it's about you. So if you just want to give us just a quick intro to who Rob Cloutier is, where you're at now, what you're doing, and then we'll get into it.
All right. Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Daryl. Yeah, this is pretty cool. And so, yeah, I was born in Norwich, Connecticut, and I lived in Jewett City, Connecticut, about 10 miles away from Norwich. And actually went
Norwich,
to Norwich High School. Yeah,
Norwich.
Norwich. Yep.
I can
Yeah,
hear it in your
Norwich.
voice.
So
Norwich,
yeah, I still have an accent. I've
just a
actually
smidge.
visited Norwich, England, as well, where the
Really?
town was named from, um,
Okay.
England. So anyhow, yeah, back in 1962, um,
62.
and I'm 62 right now. So
Okay.
kind of a unique time period here. Born in 62, and I'm 62.
There you go.
So yeah, so I was born and raised in Jewett City, Connecticut, and I left that place when I was 18. But I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17. I actually rode a bicycle 10 miles away just to join the military. And my first choice was the Air Force. But
Okay.
it was like, no, I can't do this. All they talked about was college. And I was in high school. And I wanted to get away from schooling. I wanted to get into the military.
Yep.
And that's when the Marine Corps recruiter said, hey, come on over here. I think we got something for you. And I
So,
joined.
okay. So we're definitely gonna go through that story because that sounds like a good one. But I mean, do you have any brothers? I mean, do you have any brothers and sisters? Big family,
Yeah.
small family?
So I have two brothers, two sisters. I'm the second oldest. I have an older brother. So it's my older brother, me, my sister, another brother, and then another younger sister. Yep.
Okay.
Five kids.
What'd your what was your family life like? What your family do? I'm assuming at that time frame your mom was probably a stay at home mom, raise the kids.
For the most part, yeah. But she was a telephone operator, like a
Really?
switchboard operator that
Like
would
the
plug
moving
in,
the
the cords. She did
cool.
that for a while. She was a nurse's aide, so she had a few jobs, but for the most part, a stay-at-home mom. And my dad was an electrician, and
Okay.
and he also was a police officer on a weekend for our small town of Jewett City.
Really?
Yep, yep,
So, electrician. I'm gonna make some assumptions here, and you know what they say about assumptions. Electrician coming from the trades, like a union membership, union family
yep.
type of thing.
He was, yeah, yep.
Um, what was his? Did you ever have any issues with him as a police officer? Like any, or I mean, I'm assuming pretty quiet town, but
It was a quiet town. No real issues. Um, yeah, nothing really dangerous. I mean, there were punks on the street kind of thing, but he knew who they were, and yeah, no real big issues. And it was only a weekend job. But as an
okay,
electrician, yeah, he did very well as that. Not only wiring houses, but he also worked for Yukon College, the University of Connecticut College,
okay,
as an electrician. And he went to the same high school I did, where I went to the same high school as him, Norwich Tech. And he took up the electrician side, and I took up electronics, industrial electronics. That's how I fell in love with electronic components and computers and things like that.
gotcha. Okay. Religious family.
We were born. I was born and raised Roman Catholic. We went to
Okay,
church every Sunday, and made my first communion. Went to catechism, and the whole 9 yards. But not so much now. I don't practice any religion right now.
fair enough. Um, how was your like school years? I'm assuming because you're a smart dude, like you enjoyed school, or and it sounds like when you say Norwich Tech, I get the feeling like it was I don't know. It just sounds like it was a school that had more going on than in your general public school. I don't know.
Yes.
What was it like for you?
High school was awesome. So half the year we did academics. Your history, your English, your mathematics, that kind of thing. But then the other half was your trade, whatever you
Okay.
picked. And they had carpentry, they had auto mechanics, they had electronics that I was in. And they even had a small group of females in beauty shop, beauty and
Hmm.
cosmetics. So
That's a good
not
idea
very
how they
not many
broke it out like
females.
that.
Yeah, not very many females in our high school though. It was
Huh.
it was a rough high school. It was like a how you see in the '70s with the Fonzie type characters with the
Hmm.
motorcycles and the leather jackets. That's what that high school was like.
How would you describe yourself?
I was one of the smart, adventurous, always getting into trouble type person. I got suspended a few times.
Really?
Yeah, in high
Like
school.
just playing pranks or fighting or what? A little bit of
Everything.
both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Drinking, fights, cutting classes, pulling pranks. Yeah, everything. Yeah,
Interesting. Well, it's
yeah.
the
I was
mid
a
'70s.
little
That's
troublemaker. Yeah, it was
interesting.
the end of
Interesting.
the '70s. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
graduated in 1980.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, when you were in high school, did you have an idea where you wanted to go from there,
Yes.
or was it always military, or was it something else and military was a second option, or what
No,
how'd that
it
come
was
about?
it was always military. I wanted to escape. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to stay in electronics or radio or something like that. Um, and my recruiter lied to me like every recruiter does. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll put you in radio, no problem." And I thought I was going to repair radios and get into components and whatnot, but I became a radio operator. That
Huh?
was my first MOS. Yep,
Man,
2531.
interesting.
Yep.
Um, all right. So, did you have any jobs when you were in high school, or did you pretty
Yes.
much focus on school? Okay,
No,
you did.
I worked since I was 13. Yeah. So my first real job where I put in Social Security was about 13 years old. I was an assistant janitor for the elementary school. So after
Really?
school, I would go clean classrooms, clean
Yes.
toilets, sweep up the floors, and then in the summer we would paint the classrooms. Yeah, that was my
Yeah.
first job.
Did you do that because you wanted the money, or do that because it was kind of expected that you were going to get a job?
No, I did it for the money and the experience. I wanted to explore like my options. I didn't want to sit around home and just you know fiddle around. I wanted a job. You know.
Hmm.
Yep.
What was your favorite subjects in high school? I'm assuming electronics, that type of thing, but
It was. I had a difficult time with math. I liked
uh,
it, but I had a
yeah,
difficult time with it. And I also had a difficult time with English, but for some reason I got really good with it. I really didn't have a favorite subject, you know? I hated reading. I still
really,
do. Yeah, I
really,
don't really like reading.
huh?
Um, I like learning. It doesn't necessarily mean I have to read to learn.
True, true. It's interesting you say that about math because I am just dismally poor when it comes to math. I mean, I, I knew when I was in high school, I knew very early on that I was either going to go law enforcement or military, and at that point, you did all you needed was a high school diploma. You didn't need
Yeah,
anything else. And
right,
if I have a fatal character flaw, it's that I have to find value in what I'm doing. Otherwise, it, I'm not going to put the time and effort into it. It's just
right.
not going to happen.
But
There's
but you know what? I say I hated math, but I did well in it. So well that in 1976, when I graduated from elementary school, I actually got an award for math.
really,
Yeah, I was like one of the top students for math, and I guess I was good at it, but I didn't like it,
huh?
kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, now, don't get me wrong. Like the idea of being like super intelligent math is just super intriguing to me. Like the idea that there's a whole different world out there that's made up of numbers and people understand it. I think that's cool as hell. But addition, subtraction, simple multiplication, division, and beyond that, nope. I have zero skill.
I think what helped me in math is I have a logical mind. I like logic, and when it came to computers, ones and zeros kind of thing, I got it. I understood it, and I was good at that.
Hmm.
So there's some math involved in computers and programming and whatnot, but I think you have to have a logical mind. Like if this works, then this should work, but it doesn't work because this doesn't
Yeah,
compute, kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah. Was there ever a moment where you're like, because my very first interview, which has never been aired because I told you I screwed it up, you know,
Yeah, that's too
um,
bad.
was I know it's terrible. One of the days I'm gonna go back and interview Kevin Black and like get it back on. I'm gonna get it on record. But he told me, he goes, I wanted to be a pharmacist.
Wow.
A pharmacist?
Yeah.
Kevin, really? I mean, just was there ever a moment where there was something else for you besides the military?
Um. No, not really. Uh, no, I wanted to like travel the world. I wanted to experience the world. I wanted to explore, um, and stay in some kind of electronics hobby kind of thing. So that was my goal. That was always my goal. Yeah, and I thought the
Okay.
military would give me the opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think that's why most kids join the military is just a chance. It's that chance to get away,
Right.
to go do something different.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting though. You said you want to do Air Force first.
Yeah.
I when I joined, I to be quite honest with you, my uncle had been in the army, um, so that was kind of like my logical path.
Yep.
Uh, for some pretty crazy reasons, that didn't work out. But the Marine Corps recruiter called me, and I remember I had talked to the Air Force as well, and they're like, and so much of what they were talking about was like, well, it's the quality of life is wonderful, and this and that, and I'm like, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm
No
looking for a challenge. I want,
challenge.
yeah,
That's the word. You want
yep.
a challenge.
And the Marine Corps recruiter is like, I ain't promising you nothing.
Yeah.
I promise you a hard time in boot camp, and that's about it. I'm like, that sounds like what I want.
Yeah,
Um, did how long was it between walking into the recruiting office to going to boot camp?
a year.
Okay.
I did a year delayed an entry program. So I went in there when I was 17. It just turned 17. It was a summer that I turned 17. My birthday's in June. So
When in June?
24th of June.
Okay, mine's the 9th.
Yeah, June babies.
Yep.
So yeah, so I joined and I went home. I didn't sign anything because I couldn't because I was 17.
Yeah.
And I told my parents, yeah, I joined the Marine Corps. They're like, what? Like, where did this come from? So they were shocked. So for months, you know, but I did all the paperwork and whatnot, and I convinced my parents to sign for me, and they didn't. They really didn't want to. They're like, well, this is the Army and the Coast Guard. You can stay home and be in the Coast Guard, because my dad was with the National Guard. He
Okay.
served in the National Guard for a few years, so they wanted
Well,
me
it's
to
also
stick
post
around.
Vietnam, so the military wasn't exactly popular.
It wasn't. It wasn't, especially the Marine Corps. It was
Yeah.
not popular. Yeah. So
What would,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. So they signed for me. So yeah, I was in a delayed entry program. So when I went to boot camp, I was never a private. I was a PFC. So
Okay.
I had a stripe already. Yep.
Nice. It sounds stupid, but that is a big, like a huge
It
push.
is.
And then every once in a while, you get that one dude who's like a lance corporal, and that's a major step. It's funny. You don't think it's really significant at the time, but as
Right.
time goes on, it makes a big
Yeah,
difference down the road.
it does.
Um, I'm curious, what your recruiters were they the batch that were like the leftover the guys hanging around from Vietnam, or I just
Yeah, for the
imagine
most
that they
part,
were quite a bit different than my recruiter.
they were. Yeah, they were veterans of Vietnam. Yeah. So they were pretty badass people, you
Oh
know.
yeah,
So they had to be nice, and they had to fake being nice,
could
which you can
could
you
you
can pick
tell?
that up. What's that?
I'm assuming you could tell that they were just faking it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you could tell. But then I looked at him like, I want to be like that. I want to be like that guy. I want to be a badass, but still be nice, kind of thing. You know.
Yeah.
So
Was So I did pretty much the same thing. As soon as I could, I signed up for delayed entry and spent the time getting ready physically and mentally and
yeah,
education wise. Um, I'm assuming you did well in the ASVAB?
no. So I'm
Really?
glad I'm glad you asked that question. I did
I'm
bad.
shocked.
I, I don't know what it was. It just wasn't my day, and I didn't do very well. So I didn't qualify for a lot of MOSs. So as a radio operator, I did real well. I got promoted up to sergeant. I got meritoriously promoted to sergeant. Got married. Went to 29 Palms for the first time and was an instructor for the field radio operators course. And
Okay.
and I got bored with it. I'm like, is this all there is? So um, I became a drill instructor. I wanted a challenge, so I became a drill instructor at Paris Island. And after that, I
Well,
was like,
let's
"What's
not get
that?"
too far down that because there's a
Okay,
lot of time before that.
yeah,
Um, but that and I was trying to remember. I was pretty sure you'd done the drill field, but I
yeah,
couldn't quite remember for sure. Um, um, Paris Island. I'm assuming you went to Paris Island, of course.
yes,
Um, God, that place is terrible. I I'll be quite honest with you. I went to San Diego, but I was permanent personnel at PI for a couple or
ah,
3 years. I
it's a
wasn't a drill
hellhole.
instructor, but I was there permanent, right? And I
Yeah,
was like, I'll take a hill any day over the heat, the humidity, the sand fleas.
yeah,
I'll hump any hill you want because this place
yeah.
sucks.
It does. It did. Not only for recruits, but for drill instructors
Yeah,
too. It it,
yeah.
it, it was tough. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge, and I would do it again. But once was enough. But then I got kind of bored of that too. It was like there's got to be something else, and I
How
tried to
was
change my. What's that?
How was boot camp for you?
It wasn't bad.
Wasn't bad.
Yeah. No,
I'm assuming you're pretty physical. Did you play sports in high school?
I played soccer because we didn't have a football team. Not
Okay.
in the high school I had. I played soccer, and I played baseball all my life. Um, Running was a challenge, so I had to really practice with the running thing before I went to boot camp. But that was a challenge for me. But yeah, I was pretty physically fit. And you asked me about my jobs, and my first one was a janitor's assistant, but
Hmm.
my second one was loading firewood into a truck. So here I am, about 15 years old, and we used to carry these 6 foot logs of oak and throw them up on a truck. So I was pretty fit in that aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I grew up quite a few places, but I spent a few years living with my aunt and uncle in Oregon. Um, and God, that man loved to cut firewood. I don't know, something about wood. He loved cutting wood. We had
Yep.
to cut about 15, 20 cords for the winter because we heated our house
It's a
with
lot of wood.
firewood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had a log splitter, and he would split the wood, and it was my job to stack it inside the shed. And God, I was such a lazy fucking kid, to be quite honest. And I'd look at this pile of wood, and I look at it, and I'd be like tears, like I gotta do
Yeah.
it. I don't want to do it. So yeah, God, I was a lazy kid. Um,
I used to love that stuff. I used to love
nah,
stacking firewood because
nope.
it was like making a house, you know? And it was like, look what I just built.
Yeah, I
Look at this
didn't.
pile of
I
wood.
had no joy for it at all.
No.
None, none. But it wasn't the wood. It was just I honestly, and like I said, I am in many ways still gloriously lazy. Like I will do what I need to do, but I don't know. I'd say it's a character flaw. Well, what months did you go to Paris on? Well, what were the months?
In August.
Mm,
Yeah.
that is brutal.
Yeah, it was. So the middle of August is when I went to boot camp. Yeah.
It,
Yep.
now, to be fair, winter in Paris Island it sucks too because of the humidity.
Yeah.
It's cold. It is freaking
Yeah.
cold.
It is cold.
But the summer sucks. It
Yeah,
really
because the
does.
breeze comes right off the ocean there. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's an island,
Yeah.
But I went in August and I graduated on a Marine Corps birthday, and I didn't
No
realize
shit.
how significant that was until years later. I'm like, what the heck are these jets flying over us for? Why is it so special?
That's
But
cool.
yeah, Marine Corps birthday.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Which battalion?
first. And boot camp was second battalion.
Second battalion. Okay.
Then I was drill
Um.
instructor first.
Now, do you do drill fields at PI as well?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I'm assuming boot camp was still what, 12 weeks, 13 weeks?
Yeah. 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 That's
Okay.
that 3
I think
months.
it's
Yeah.
always been pretty much about that, hasn't it? For the most part.
Yeah, well, I mean, they tried experimenting a while back and to try to cut it down, especially during Vietnam,
Yeah.
and then right after, I think 9/11 is when they try to cut it down a bit too. Yeah,
There's some. I'm glad I'm retired now because there are they brought in some changes in the past decade or so that I
yeah, they
absolutely
did.
totally do not agree with.
Yeah,
Um, the mixed gender training platoons,
yeah.
well, companies.
Oh,
Uh,
I got a story for you. So go ahead and finish, and I got a story for
well, I
you
was
here.
just gonna say I don't know how it is for women, quite honestly. I mean, I'm not a woman, but for an 18-year-old boy, there's two things in your brain: beer and women.
Yeah,
And boot camp is not a dime for any distractions. And there were when I was stationed at PI, there were all kinds of just insanely stories about recruits doing insane stuff when an opportunity presented itself,
yep,
just because they were training even remotely close to each other. So if
yep,
you put companies together, it's insane to me. I can't imagine. It just makes no sense. But what
yep.
was your story?
So in the early 80s, see, I was a drill instructor. Well, no, the late 80s. I was a drill instructor from 86 to like 89, something like that.
Okay.
Um, and they experimented with aerobics exercise. And they had a female on a PT table. conducting aerobics
Oh my
with male
God.
recruits. That did not last.
Just
Oh
standing there
my,
going like this, going,
that was horrible for us drill instructors. That was
oh,
terrible.
I
It
can
was a
imagine.
yeah, yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
I
bad.
remember in boot camp, any opportunity like on family day was like, just, yeah, no, it's just, I don't know. It's it is what it is, and it's the world we live in, but I think it's a huge mistake. Um, all right, so 3 months boot camp. Now, did they do MCT back then, or did you go straight to your MLS school?
No, no, they did not do MCT. Nope. That just went straight to. In fact, what's unique about me is I never went to MOS school after boot camp. I went straight to Camp Lejeune, Camp Lejeune, however
I
you
don't.
want to say.
You know what? This whole Lejeune thing, I think they're just screwing with people because there's no R. And
I
I've
know.
lived in French speaking countries, and there's no way you can turn Lejeune into Lejeune. I'm sorry.
Well, I actually spoke to the family,
Okay,
and they said, yeah, the French pronunciation is Lejeune, and I said, well, I don't speak French, I speak English, so yeah,
no
I
parlez vous
say
français.
Lejeune. I was a smart ass back then, so yeah.
The
But so yeah, I went to Camp Lejeune. Um, and months later, I finally went to Camp Geiger, which is like the next little base to Lejeune,
Yep.
and went to MOS school, the 2531 radio operators course at Camp Geiger, not 29 Palms.
Interesting. So instead of parking you at the at your MOS school for a couple months waiting for a school seat, they just sent you right to the fleet.
Yep,
What was your first unit?
and I was with artillery, so
Okay,
I was with 210, 2nd Battalion, 10th Marines. Yep, I was a radio operator for artillery.
interesting. How's your hearing?
I lost some hearing, but not a lot. I wasn't out in the gun lines that much. I was back in the FDC truck.
Yep.
I can't believe I remember that. Um, Forward Deployment
Fire
Center,
direction
Fire
control.
Direction Center. Yeah,
Front center. That's right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I was with the FDC truck, and plus I was a Jeep operator, Jeep
Okay.
driver. So I had my own Jeep. So my radio was connected to the Jeep. So
Nice. Nice.
everywhere I went, I drove. Yeah,
Nice. Um, man, Lejeune. What was that
unique
like
place.
as a young PFC?
I absolutely loved it. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was on my own. I had money in my pocket, and I had a purpose, and I loved it. Yeah, loved
So
it.
I'm trying to remember the time, and I feel like terrible retired Marine for not knowing this. But when was Beirut?
When?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a story for that too.
Okay.
So 1983
Three.
is
Okay.
when Beirut bombing happened, and I was at Camp Lejeune. So here I am. I'm out in Camp Pickett. I think it was Pickett. We're on deployment. They used to call them deployments back then. It was a field exercise. I was on a field exercise with artillery, shoot, move, communicate. And that's exactly what we did. We shot, we moved, and we communicated. Um, and that's when Beirut happened. And we were on what they call air alert. Air
Yep.
alert is when you got your stuff packed and you're ready to go if something
Hmm.
happens. And it did happen. Beirut happened.
Yep.
So we left Camp Pickett. We went back to Camp Lejeune. I was a Jeep operator. I got a plane ticket for me and my Jeep to go to Beirut. I called my
Really?
parents and said, "Hey, I don't know when I'm coming back, but I'll see you later." And
Wow.
so we're ready to drive a convoy to the airport to load up on the planes, and we got the word that they did not want artillery at Beirut because they wanted it to be peaceful.
Yeah.
So the people they took was the cleanup crew, basically. So a couple friends of mine went and they took my trailer with all my gear in it, all my deuce gear, all my uniforms were in my trailer, and I took the trailer to Beirut, and I did not go. I was stuck back in the rear.
You know, it. I'm sure at the time it was frustrating and it sucked. But granted, I wasn't in the grunts, and so I did my opportunity to intermingle with the folks who actually seen shit was fairly small. But the one Marine that I remember that I can say without a shadow of a doubt had problems was a Marine that was assigned to mortuary duty in Iraq, and that's
Yeah.
what he did day in and day out. And he, I could tell that impacted him greatly. So the fact you didn't go is probably good, to be quite honest.
Yeah. That's what
Upon
everyone
reflection,
says. That's what everyone
yeah.
says, but I was so disappointed.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
When you're like 18, 19, 20, that's all you want to do.
Yeah.
Um, did you have a car at Lejeune, or did they let you have cars
Yep. Yep. I did. I did.
living
I
in the
had
barracks?
a 1972 Chevy Nova.
Nice.
So so I got a story about that too. So so when I got my first car, I got it painted metallic blue.
Yep.
Had a souped up engine in it, 4 barrel Holly, and I used to race it on Lejeune Boulevard.
Really?
And so I got a personalized license plate that said Cloutier on it. So my license plate was my last name. And a friend of
You're
mine in the
avoiding the
barracks,
cops. It's real smart.
I know, no, it wasn't smart.
I know. I
Wait till
know. I'm being
wait,
sarcastic.
wait till you hear this story. So a friend of mine in the barracks, we used to live in Open Squad Bay Barracks, and he used to borrow my car, and he used to fill up my gas tank and give me money. I'm like, yeah, you can borrow
That's a
my car
win.
for the night. I'm not doing anything. But what I found out later is that he used to take my car because it was fast and it was a strong car. And he used to rob places out in Lejeune.
With a
He used to
license plate that said
actually,
Cloutier? Holy crap.
yes,
That's insane.
yes, and he used to steal um,
Oh
safes,
my lord.
money safes, and stick it in the trunk of my car and take off. And there were a couple times he was chased by the police, and he got
That's
away.
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah,
So,
I'm lucky.
it,
I'm lucky. I'm still here.
yeah. Um. So I'm assuming your staff and COs in that first period of time, they were all Vietnam veterans.
Yeah.
Sign- what can you kind of describe what it was like working for those guys? Completely different atmosphere, completely different culture, or
It was. It was. I mean, when if you think about the Marine Corps back in the early '80s, and you have these old crusty veterans from Vietnam, you can just imagine what it was like, and it was like that. It
hmm
was. Um, uh, Sometimes they were heartless, just heartless people. The biggest problem was drugs back then,
yeah.
marijuana, cocaine, and lots of alcohol. Oh my God. Yeah, I drove drunk all the time. I hate to say it, but I did.
When did that culture really? Was it the late '80s, early '90s when it really started to change?
Yeah, it was like mid '80s, the mid to late '80s, when they basically said, "Hey, we know you're hooked on drugs, kind of thing. We're here to help. You have a choice. You either go and get fixed, and get taken care of medically, or we just discharge you." And there's a lot of Marines who took the discharge.
Really?
Like, I'm out of here.
Just
Yep,
easier?
yep,
Wow. Okay.
yep.
So then you went to Geiger for MOS school. Where'd you go
Yeah.
after Lejeune?
Oh, I went to 29 Palms.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I went on deployment for 29. Okay, so during Lejeune, I was there for 4 years, and a lot took place in 4 years. I think that was the busiest time in my life in the Marine Corps. We went on, I went on Medfloat, went all over the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal, went down to Oman, been to Honduras, been to 29 Palms a few times on field exercises. And you know what? The funny thing is, when I went to 29 Palms the first time, I absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was the coolest thing. I'm like, wow, look at this desert. Look at all this land. This is so awesome.
Yeah.
And here I am. This
Yeah.
is
I'm,
where I'm
I'm
living.
I'm weird the same way. I like the desert. Don't get,
Yeah.
I like the mountains too, but the de- yeah, getting state. The only place I probably would have wanted to go in California other than 29 Palms was Bridgeport.
I don't know. Well, yeah. Yeah, I've never been stationed there, but I've visited Bridgeport. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you went to 29 Palms, was that as an instructor?
Yes. And I was newly married. My wife Judy was pregnant with our first child. Drove across country in that '72 Chevy Nova. Um, and when we got here, she started crying. She absolutely hated it. She was like, Where are you taking me? What is this place? Where's the shopping mall at?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's about
Yeah,
an hour
it's a
and a half
ways.
away."
It's
Yeah,
it's funny you say that too because when I went to 29 Palms from Paris Island, uh, at my wife now girlfriend at the time and her daughter, I brought when we drove out, uh, we came in on 10,
yeah.
and then so I forget where from, but basically southeast of 29 Palms, I went through the desert. I didn't bring them through the nice direction. I brought them through the worst possible. And
By Yuma, right? By Yuma,
yeah,
Yuma.
and it was just because and yeah, it was kind of like the same reaction was like, my God, where did you bring us to?
Yeah,
Lucky you actually we stayed together after that, but
yeah,
um, because yeah, it was a shock. I didn't bring them through Yucca Valley. I didn't bring them through 29. I didn't bring them through Palm Springs. I brought them out the back road.
yeah.
Just
So did I. I did the same thing. Yeah,
yep. Um,
and
how
and
was
and and it was at night too, so everything was lit up. She's like, "Wow,
okay?
that's a big city down there." I'm like, "Well, that's the base, you know." And so we stayed in a little hotel in downtown 29 Palms. And when she woke up the next day,
She's like,
she
what is this place?
she didn't believe it. Oh my god, it was
So we got to
bad.
get back to the married part because that's one thing that I think is so cool about you. I mean, you've been married for almost 40 years at this point, right?
Yeah, so we got married in 1984. We
Okay.
just celebrated 41 years
Wow.
just the other day. Yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
41 years. Yeah, so we got
Um,
married at Camp Lejeune. Yeah, and a little Catholic chapel that still exists in Camp Lejeune.
yeah, there by the main parade field, right?
Kinda. Yeah, kinda near it. Yes,
Yeah. Um, how'd you meet her? Because your wife was the sweetest lady. How'd you meet her?
she is. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So my best buddy, Dave Trice, we hung out, we drank together, we drove cars together, we raced together, we did all kinds of things, and he brought me home in Linwood, PA, Linwood, Pennsylvania,
Okay.
and he says, "Yeah, I got this friend of mine I want you to meet," and it was Judy, and she walks outside to jump in the car, and I was sitting in the back seat, and Dave was like, "Hey, Judy, this is Rob here." She turned around and just started talking, and she hasn't stopped since. And I absolutely fell in love with her. She
Yeah, that's
was
awesome.
she was so skinny, so strange. She was like her own individual,
Yeah.
kind of like Grace Vanderwall. You know Grace Vanderwall, the singer on Americans Got Talent. How
Yes. Yes.
kind of
Yes.
different she is.
Yeah.
It's kind of remind me of that.
Free
Yeah,
spirit.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. Um, how long did you know her before you got married?
A little over a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That. Huh. All right. So when you got to 29 Palms, what was the tour length at 29 Palms at that time?
As a field radio operator instructor, it's kind of weird. It was almost like being a drill instructor,
Really?
and a lot of the instructors they just hated students, and I'm like, how can you hate students? These are your future Marines that you're molding and teaching, and how can you hate them? Well, they're students, we're instructors. So I'm like, I can never understand that. It,
You know
it's
that
I think of it as a father and son relationship, and I thought of it as, yeah, they're just a pain in the butt, making their life miserable kind of thing. And I was like, I don't get it.
I remember when I got out there in 2002, Delta Company, and then we
Yeah.
merged with Bravo. And I remember there was a very distinct culture between Bravo and Delta.
Oh yeah.
and those guys were assholes
Yeah,
for the students. I
it was
mean,
always
some of
like
our
that.
guys weren't, but they were.
Yep,
That was yeah. What was
it
that?
was
What
always
was that?
like that. Yep.
Who was that first sergeant used to PT in boots and utes all the time? Not boots and utes, but green silkies or UDTs and boots. First sergeant, dark green marine. He was.
I don't know.
He used to lay hands on instructors and students sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
crazy
can
guy.
never understand that.
Um,
I don't get it.
yeah, no, yeah, no, it's a different time, and it was weird too because he was. I ran into him one time on when I was on embassy duty, and he was a deck commander in Brussels, Belgium, and he had the same
That's a cool
reputation there.
place. I
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
been
it
there.
is. Um, he had the same reputation there though. For embassy duty, that was very odd.
Yeah,
Um, it was because it's just a completely different environment.
yeah.
Um, but so okay, so 29 Palms. Where'd you go from there?
And then
Drillfield.
I applied for drill instructor school.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you.
and a lot of people are like, "You a drill instructor? How can you do that?" And I'm only 5'5", you know. I'm not a big guy, um, but I liked a challenge. Even my dad was like, "How can you be a mean person like that?" So it was a culture shock for me. I had to turn into a different person. I actually had to create an identity. I had
Hmm.
to create another person to be a drill instructor. Yeah,
My my when I came off embassy duty in 2000, my plan I went to PI because Master Guns Kevin Black was down there. He got me to come down there, and my whole plan is I wanted to scope the place out because I want to be a drone instructor myself. But after being there and seeing the fishbowl environment you lived in, and the visibility and the opportunity to destroy a career over one stupid statement or
yeah,
one stupid action, I was like, I want no part of this. Like, I'll
yeah,
stay permanent personnel and go do something different.
yeah.
Um, yeah. So
It was a challenge.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I remember I went through a McMap training to be an instructor with they had just with the students that part of the class that I went with their PI was um, drill instructor students who had just graduated because they
right,
were just starting the program. They wanted the drill instructors to be able to teach at the same time.
right.
And I remember a couple of them, really great guys, and I saw them like 2 or 3 months later with the platoons, and they were dramatically different individuals.
Yeah, they're
Lost
monsters.
50, 60 pounds,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
shells of human beings.
yeah. I basically turned into a little green monster, and
Did you pick
I
PI or did they give it to you?
no, I picked it. Yeah, I
Okay.
picked it. Yeah,
How
yeah. You just totally changed to a different person. Yeah.
huh, was that a 2 year tour at the time?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What years was that?
See, I went to DI school in '86. I got let's see, I got notes here too somewhere. Um, but it was '86 to '89, the beginning of '89, something like that.
Okay.
So it was like they say 2 years, but you had to go to school, and then you
True.
have leave in between school and the time you actually start being a drill instructor. So
How was the
it,
school?
it
Terrible.
was like the hardest school I've ever been to.
I
It
can
was it was
imagine.
horrible. It was horrible. I was a sergeant at the time, and yeah, they treated us like crap.
Yeah,
And it was harder going through DI school than it is for a recruit to
I
go through
agree.
recruit training.
Just from my
Yeah,
observations being a PI, I agree. The way they
yeah,
treated, having been, I couldn't imagine being a Marine, being a sergeant or a staff sergeant, and then getting treated like that again. I was like, I don't.
yes, but worse.
But
But,
where you?
but worse.
Because
Yeah,
you're a
it was.
Marine, so you can treat them like that.
Yeah, it was bad.
Oh,
Yeah, it was bad, but I survived it, and I don't regret doing it.
what's
Um,
your what's your favorite memory from the drill field?
on a drill field,
Yeah. Is there something that like sticks out that like that's why that was my best time on the drill field?
my best time was graduating a platoon. seeing those guys actually graduate and become Marines, it's heartfelt. I mean, it's like a stab in the heart. Not
Mhm.
only are you proud that they become Marines, but you're also going to miss them. Believe it or not, drill instructors do miss recruits, and because it's kind of like your kids. You turn them in from a civilian from all walks of life. From people from Chicago or New York or L.A. and they all merge together and they all mingle together and become Marines, and then you have to let them go. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably my proudest and most memorable times is graduating a platoon. Yeah.
What was your worst memory of the drill field?
The drill field worst. Let me think about that for a second. I don't know. I think the saddest, maybe not the worst, but the saddest. I was
Okay.
actually a swimming instructor too. So we go on. What do they call it? B billets? No, not B billets. Oh my god, I can't think of what
Yeah,
it
what
is.
was that called in between? Like if you, they would pull you out of a cycle and put
Yes,
you into.
and put you somewhere else. Well, I worked the pool. I worked the pool, and I was a swimming instructor because I absolutely loved the water. I absolutely loved swimming, and the saddest thing is watching recruits who are so afraid of getting into the water, and some of them actually drowning and dying, and then brought back to life from one of the instructors.
Holy
That
shit!
that's just heart wrenching. They jump off the high dive and they sink, and they just wait and to see if they'll float. Sometimes they don't float and they actually die, and they had to bring them
Oh,
out of the pool and give them mouth to mouth.
wow,
Yeah, that's
wow.
back in
Yeah,
the
I mean,
'80s.
I'm not
That's
the most
back in the
comfortable in the
'80s.
water. I mean, I some so I'm not gonna die. I mean, if I'm in there any longer than about 10, 15 minutes, 10 to tread water, I'm dead. There's no doubt about it. But I remember when I came off embassy duty and I checked into Paris Island, the admin clerk was doing a audit on my SRB, and
Right?
they said, "Oh, so you're WSQ, right?" I was like, I don't know, sure,
Were you
whatever.
really?
The fuck now. But I don't know how. I have no idea how. Somehow my record reflected WSQ, so
Oh
I
man,
never had to call again, which was thank baby Jesus, I
yeah.
never had to call again
I was
until
I was actually WSQ. Yeah,
yeah, until I went to TBS. I had to requal because I
yep,
forget why, but I remember when I went to the pool at Lejeune to requal.
yeah,
The guy goes, "Well, you're WSQ. We'll run you through. You'll get your two, and then you can go to
yeah,
DQ." And I'm like, "No. I'm doing two. That's the
yeah,
bare minimum." He's like,
yeah,
"But you're Q." I was like, "No, I don't give a shit. I'm doing two because I
yep,
can't do that." And he goes, "Long story." Um, all right. So I'm curious because you and your wife have such a strong relationship. How
yeah.
was the drill field
It was
for you?
tough.
I bet.
It was tough. We saw a lot of marriages break up. A lot of them. We saw a lot of people's careers destroyed.
Oh yeah.
Whether whether it was true or not, if they did what they did. But yeah, a lot of good Marines got kicked out, bad conduct discharge. A lot of marriages were broken, and we were so fortunate that ours survived. Yeah, it was tough. Plus, we had two kids too, two little kids,
Yeah.
like 3 and 4 years old. Um, so it was tough. I was always at work, always
Hmm.
at work, and so Judy had to survive on her own. We actually lived on the island, base
Did
housing
you?
next
Nice.
to the confidence course. We were that
Okay.
house next to the confidence course.
Okay.
That's where we lived. Yep.
That's
It was
man.
hard.
Have you been back to Paris Island anytime in the past few years or?
Not a few years now.
And
No.
it's a complete. Well, to be fair, the last time I was there was probably 2013,
Oh wow.
but completely different.
Yeah,
Than
I
I was
bet.
there in 2002.
Yeah.
Completely different. Um, the quality of the base housing was dramatically different on Paris Island. I mean, I mean, there
Yeah.
weren't bad houses there previously, but I mean, they were wildly better. Um, so yeah, Paris Island's and I enjoyed Paris Island though. That actually, in reflection, minus embassy duty, because that's a microcosm in and of itself. Paris Island was my favorite duty station. And one thing I really liked about Paris Island was the fact that when you left that base, you had no idea you were near Marine Corps base. None.
Yeah, I know. Buford.
No
Yeah,
strip
Buford
joints,
is a
no tattoo
beautiful.
parlors,
Yeah,
none of that garbage.
yeah. It was a beautiful place. We used to
Yeah.
go shrimping,
Oh
catch our
yeah.
own shrimp and boil it. We used to love that. And I mean, other than the smell of the swamp gas
hmm
and the sand fleas and mosquitoes and all that stuff, it was a beautiful place. Great beaches.
So I should ask. So at this point, you've been in for 8 years, roughly.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, by that point, you've pretty much decided you want to make it a career. But was there ever a point where you thought, maybe I should get out?
No, never. No, I was gonna stick it out for 20 plus years. Yeah. That was always my goal. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Yeah,
I thought, I spent 20 years out of my life as a young adult. And after that, it's more or less smooth sailing. That's what I thought.
yeah, yeah. Well, and to be fair, I mean, you're you're 62, but you've been retired for 5 or 10 years now, right?
So I retired twice.
That's
So
right.
I retired active duty Marine Corps after
Yep.
26 years. And then I did 12 more years as a GS government employee. And I've been retired. I haven't worked for the past 6 years. And it's a great feeling.
Yeah, we'll get to that because if there's ever anybody that did that right, it was you. Uh,
Yeah, I
Most
got
guys
lucky.
work to their dead, basically, and
Yeah.
they don't get that opportunity to enjoy life, but you have.
Yep.
Um, all right, so post Paris Island, what'd you do then?
Oh, so I got bored. I was like, I don't want to be a radio operator. I don't want to go back to being a radio operator. I want to change my MOS. And basically, the career jammer or whatever you want to call him, career recruiter. What the heck did I call him?
Career planners, or
Career
no,
planner. Yeah,
career planner,
career
go ahead, career planners, and then you had the monitors.
yeah, career planner said we don't have much for you. Your ASVAB scores are low. I'm like, what? And he said, hey, study this book, retake the ASVAB, and let's talk about it. So I did. Studied my butt off for months. And I did really good in ASVAB after that. Really good. And basically he said, you can have your pick. You can pick whatever MOS you want. So I picked computer programming. I became a COBOL programmer.
Holy shit! What year did you go through the schoolhouse for
Um,
programming?
it was it was right after DI duty, right after it.
Wow.
So 99, I think it was.
No,
Let's
89.
see. I mean, 89. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Um, yeah, 89. So in 89, or after DI duty, I went to Quantico and went to school as a COBOL programmer. And people used to tell me, stop marching in the hallway. They can hear you downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The computer science school at Quantico was a cool place. It really was. It was. I remember when I was in MCT, they gave me my MOS. It was COBOL programming, and I remember I asked him. I said, "Well, what is that?" And they said, "I don't have a fucking clue, but it's in Quantico, so it sounds cool."
Yeah.
Quantico is such a unique place.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is.
It's
I've been
it's
there
the
many times.
crossroads. They call it the crossroads of the Marine Corps, and
Yep.
it's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, how well did you do in COBOL? Pretty good.
I did. I did really good. I totally enjoyed it. I was one of those strange dudes. I really was. I did so well that they actually gave me orders to stay there at Quantico. Yeah,
Really?
and as soon as I changed MOSs and I went to COBOL, I got promoted to staff sergeant. So I was a
Okay.
staff sergeant. Yeah.
Wait, now, did you stay there at the schoolhouse or did you stay there at Marine Corps base?
No, at the base. I went
Okay.
downstairs. What are they called? The MCT? No. Hmm. Ooh, I forgot what they called it. But yeah, I stayed in that same building, but downstairs.
Huh.
I was an official COBOL programmer for the Marine Corps. Yeah.
You were, I mean, so I went through the schoolhouse in '94. So you were probably there when I was going through school.
Yes, I
Huh.
was there. Yeah, I was there. I
Huh.
was. I was downstairs.
I'll be darned.
Yep. Yep.
Small world.
It is. Isn't it crazy?
Huh.
We probably
Um,
bumped into each other too.
Rob probably yelled at me for doing something stupid.
Yeah.
I was a retard. I really was. Um, but Quantico is actually, I, I never got a 300 PFT. I think the best I ever did was like a 295. Always ran like a
Yeah.
225, 230, but I could
Me
run.
too.
I ran like a demon because I couldn't do pull-ups worth of shit. So I had to run
Yeah.
fast, get my sit-ups, get 200, then squeak in another 30, 40 points.
Yeah.
But if you remember on Quantico, if you were there at the battalion headquarters with the chow hall, basically,
Yep.
you had the main drag. That loop around the base,
Yeah.
uh, up past the stables, over the hill to the commissary down by the PX and back it was an 8 mile loop, and I would run that
Yeah.
every day
Wow.
uh, after school just to burn off steam. I
Eight.
like Quantico.
You used to run 8 miles a day.
Yeah, I run a
So
boot and
so
used to.
yeah. So when I was
I
boots
was
and
an idiot.
utes, crazy.
I was an idiot.
So when I was in Quantico, I ran the Marine Corps Marathon. It
Hmm.
was the only marathon I ever ran. I'll never do it again. It was hard as hell. But I practiced at Quantico, and I used to run that loop as well.
Yeah,
Not every
it's a
day.
great loop.
But,
It's a fantastic loop.
it is.
And
It
then
is.
do you? I'm sure you guys ran the power lines too for PT.
Yes.
Those sucked, man. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I did the Marine Corps Marathon in Afghanistan
Did
uh,
you?
in 2011, I guess. Yeah, 2011.
Oh wow.
Um, but it
So how
was
did you do?
so I had ran a marathon in Okinawa, and I got like 4 hours and 30 minutes or something. And then somebody told me Oprah Winfrey did it in like three something. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta beat Oprah, right? I mean, how the hell do I fucking lose to Oprah? So I ran it in Afghanistan, but it was a 5 mile square.
Oh,
It was the worst freaking marathon because the one in Okinawa, there's people everywhere. They're handing you beer,
yeah.
there's
Yeah.
oranges, there's food.
Yep.
It's, I mean, it was like to 18 miles, it was nothing.
Yeah.
18 miles sucked after that, but it was nothing. Afghanistan, it was 5 miles with like 300 people just doing squares. It was terrible. But I ran, I think, it's like 3 hours and 45 minutes, something like
Oh
that,
wow.
46 minutes. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's it. I'm done. I beat Oprah. I'm out.
Yeah. So the marathon is 26.2 miles,
Yep.
and I did mine in 3 hours and 50 minutes, and
I
we ran
barely
around
got you by
Washington.
a few minutes.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's good.
Yeah, no, it
But
was a very,
that was an awesome run because
yeah,
it went through Washington D.C. and the
yeah.
Pentagon.
See, that would have been cool.
Yeah, it was.
But there on Camp Leatherneck,
Yeah,
it was a square.
it
It was
must have
like,
been hot too.
oh, wasn't I don't remember. I don't recall it being too bad. It was. I think it was far enough into the fall winter time frame where it wasn't too bad. But
Yeah,
normally you got thousands of people, right?
yeah.
They limited it. I think it was like 350 people.
Oh
So after
Jesus.
the first lap of like 5 miles, you're running by yourself for the next 20. It sucked.
Yep.
Um, but anyways, so okay. Where'd you go after Quantico?
I went to Okinawa,
Okay,
and I tried to get an
Com
accompanied
Squadron
tour.
18.
I'm sorry.
Com Squadron
Oh
18. Not 18.
no, First Marine
28.
Air Wing.
Yeah,
G
we're at the
six.
First Marine. G6.
First Marine Air Wing. G6. Yeah.
Okay, I worked there too.
Yep.
Were you in the Com Squadron?
No.
Who the fuck was that?
No. No. I was
Oh,
building one for Camp
Captain
Foster.
Dave Robbins. Do you know Dave
Yes.
Robbins?
Oh, I
Yes,
got a
that's what I'm
story
thinking
about.
about.
I got a story about him.
Oh, um,
What a
so
turd! I did not like
really,
that. I don't
really,
like him.
um, God, I'm trying to remember. It was So when were you in first mom?
From 93 to 96. Hold
Okay,
on a second, because I forget stuff like that. Yeah, like 93 to 96. Yeah.
you know it's funny. So it's it's funny how our paths were like so close because
Yeah,
when I went when I got out of MO school, I went to Oki to Third FSSG, and we got FAP to the Comm Squadron. Was it? It was 18 on. Yeah, it was Comm Squadron 18
yeah. I think it's
on.
18. Yeah,
Yeah, 18. Um, I can't remember the chief warrant officer that worked down there. God, my memory sucks these days. But point being is when I was at First Mod G6 as a as a WO and WO2, um, we pulled token ring hubs, MSUs, MAUs,
M-
MSAUs,
yeah,
yeah,
MAUs. Yeah,
MAUs out of the ceiling because
yes,
I guess when they transitioned, they just cut the wires and shoved them back in
yes,
there.
yes,
And we're like, what is? And I was like, I know what that is. I've worked with token
yes,
ring.
yes.
Yeah.
I pulled so much cable. I created and pulled so much token stuff. It's unbelievable. I made
I,
so many end connectors. Oh my god,
oh,
it was bad.
yeah, that's cool. How'd you enjoy Okinawa?
I loved Okinawa. Um, it was a stressful job for me at first because I knew nothing about servers
Okay.
at the time. I was a programmer.
Banyan Vines.
I was a programmer, so
Yeah.
I didn't know much about IP addressing and loading up a server, software, and all that. So I spent many, many, many sleepless nights in building one, G6, um, reloading Banyan Vine
Yep.
servers.
20. It
Oh
was
my god!
26 discs if I remember right too, wasn't it?
Yes,
One
there were
5.5 inch
tapes.
floppies.
They were freaking like almost
Yeah.
tapes that we used to put. It was
Um,
horrible.
it's funny you say it's really interesting how our careers in many ways are so close because when I came back from embassy duty, first of all, I was completely retarded when it came to programming in the first place. And I went to Okinawa and I did networking, I servers and Banyan Vines and Token Ring and all that kind of. Then we transitioned to Ethernet. Um, and then I went to embassy duty for 4 years. And when I got to Paris Island, I was a staff sergeant, well, staff sergeant select. I was staff into IC of a programming shop
Yeah,
and knew nothing about my job,
yeah,
period. And I remember I went back to the PC repair section and I was like, hey, how do I do this? And they're like, are you stupid? I was like,
yeah,
first of all, I haven't been doing this job for 4 years. Second of all,
yeah,
I'm a programmer.
yeah,
I don't know about this. It was Windows NT. I was like, I don't even know what this is.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I understand your pain. I had no idea what I was doing. That's
That
just
happened a
why
lot
I
in my
made a lot
career.
of. Yeah.
It happened a lot where I was thrown into something that I knew nothing about, or I jumped in a fire and I knew nothing about it. Yeah, a lot in my career. Yeah,
I spent most of my career. Well, I feel like I spent most of my career learning, like a
yeah,
steep learning curve. And then
yeah,
about the time I'd figure it out, then I go do something
yep,
different and it'd be a big learning curve again.
yeah. You got orders to somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like becoming a warrant officer, to be quite honest, as from and I because so I've um, going back to me being a programming staff in the OIC and knowing zero about my job, I quickly made a lap move into information assurance when they first came out with MOS, which of course
yeah. That was
nobody
a
knew
good
what the job
move.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
good move.
and then doing IA for at the schoolhouse for I was there for what 3 years, and then I went to MARSOC G6 for 6 months before I picked up warrant officer. So I remember when I checked into G6 first month, Colonel Dillon, Colonel Dillon, Lieutenant Colonel Dillon at the time, Pete Dillon.
Yeah,
I checked in and he goes, so tell me about your history, Scabina. And I gave him my history. He goes, so what you're telling me is you don't know what you're doing.
yeah,
Well, that's not quite how I'd put it. And he goes, well, and I said, but to be fair, you're probably right. And I said, but I will learn. I
yeah,
promise you that. And he, Pete Dillon, to this day, I owe him because he could have rode me
yeah,
hard and made my life absolutely miserable. But what he did was he said, you know what? You don't know what you're doing, but you need to figure it out. So
yep,
I'm going to leave you alone. I'm not
yeah,
going to give you a bunch of bullshit. Learn your job.
right.
and then me and Pat Toll down at the FSSG or MLG, whatever they called it.
Pat
The-
Toe.
Oh yeah,
Love that guy.
all those guys. Well, of course, we rallied around, and I learned quickly that 3 years Noki was a learning curve, steep.
Yeah.
So I pretty yeah. Um, how, so I'm assuming 93 to 96, you probably did what were the Korean exercises called?
Um,
Freedom Banner.
yeah, Freedom Banner and holy cow, I forgot what it's called. But yeah, I
There's
went to Korea
Jumping
a
Bear.
couple times.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um.
Yep. Been
Huh.
to Thailand. Went to
Oh
Thailand.
yeah.
Went to Korea.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Thailand, Korea. I never made it to. Did you ever make it to Australia?
No, but
I know.
I've been to
Okay.
Australia
Have you?
as a civilian. I mean,
Very
as a
cool.
civilian, I've been to Australia. Yeah.
Yeah. I hung around. Let's see. I did. I had a year tour Noki. I did an extra year because I was hoping to hang around long enough to do something bold. I think it's like bold alligator or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the year after I left to go to embassy duty, then they did bold alligator, so I missed it. I always want to do Australia.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too.
after 96, where'd you go after? So I'm assuming after uh, Okinawa, probably a gunny. Then you got picked up for warrant officer.
So yeah. So picked up staff sergeant in Quantico. When I went to um, Okinawa, Japan, I picked up gunny there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think gunny was probably my favorite rank.
Oh yeah.
But that didn't last long because I got selected for warrant officer. But before that, it took me 6 tries to become a warrant officer. So I started
I remember
applying
you telling me that.
as a staff sergeant in Quantico. I wasn't a PT nut. I wasn't in the best shape as a programmer because programmers, they're fat, dumb, and happy, sitting behind a desk and typing on the keyboard. And I was one of those guys that was beginning to be, a little squishy around the midsection. So that's when I decided to run a marathon and got into shape. And then I learned to enjoy running, just enjoy it. So for 6 years, I put in for warrant officer. So I went to Okinawa, Japan, and it was my last time I could put in for warrant officer. I was a staff sergeant, and I got selected for gunny.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my best friends, um, um, oh man, Don Brookins. He was a captain at the time. His name was Don
Brookins.
Brookins.
Yep, I know him.
So he pulled me to the side. He says, "Rob," he says, "Man, dude, this is your last time you can put in for warrant officer." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's just frustrating. It's just heart. It breaks my heart every time I don't get selected because I know I can be a good warrant officer." He says, "Okay, just put it in for me. If you're not gonna do it for you or your family, put it in for me." I'm like, "Fine, fine, Captain Brookins, I'll do it." So I put in for it and I got selected. I picked up gunny, and then months later I picked up warrant officer. And if it wasn't for Don Brookins, yeah, I wouldn't have made it. And then so
So much the
'96,
same. I actually went golfing in Thailand with Captain Don Brookings and
yeah,
Cobra Gold 90, probably
Cobra
5.
Gold. Yeah, that's
Yep.
what it's called. Yeah, Cobra Gold.
Um.
Then there are two of them.
Yep.
Wait a minute, 95? Wait a minute,
Yeah.
hold on. You went to Cobra Gold 95?
Yeah.
So did I.
Because we were on that little. I can't remember the
Sami-san.
name. So yeah,
I was,
we're in the, it
I
was
was in
like
Sami.
it was a total. That was an insane trip to Thailand because
Yeah,
I went with the first mod G6. I got
yeah,
an award someplace from there,
yeah.
like a Circom or something. But it was like you got on the bus. You got on the bus at the hotel at 9 o'clock or like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, you were in a hotel?
Yeah, and
Jesus Christ.
I was
Those
with the G6
hotels were
staff.
beautiful.
I know. I was
Beautiful
with the
hotel.
staff. So you get on the bus at like 8. You get, and if you got on the bus at like 4 in the afternoon with the G6 staff, and it was complete. It was to be completely honest with you, it was just complete debauchery. It was just stupid. There's no way they should have allowed me to do it. Um, yeah, that was. And then I went
Yeah,
back the next year,
I was
and
in an open squad bay and Sami-san.
so the next year when I went back, because I was with G6 First Maw, but the
Wow.
FSSG guys were over here and they could see what I was doing. So I remember the next year they said, "You're going back. and we lived in tents,
Yep.
and I stayed
Yeah.
on base. They're like,
Yep.
"You're not doing anything because we know what you did last year."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Dang, that was insane. Don Brookings. That's God, I'm trying to
Awesome
remember
guy.
the chief officer down at the comm squadron. I'm trying to remember at the time. I wish I could remember his name. Anyways, um, funny. I remember now that you applied 6 times, and I remember thinking when I put in, I was like, because I got picked up on the first time, but only because it was the year where they selected like 32 people. I mean, I said
Right.
jokingly, if you could fog a mirror, you could get selected
Yeah.
because it was like
Yeah.
34 quotas and 32 applications.
Yeah.
And you know what the funny? So to wrap back to what we were talking about before, when I went to the pool to qualify before TBS, because I wanted, somebody told me and said you got to qualify before you go to school.
Yeah.
If you're not qualified when you go to school, your life will suck.
It will. Yes.
And it did for the guys who didn't follow that advice. But I remember I was at the pool and I was talking to the sergeant, and it was the one I was explaining. I don't want WSQ. I just want whatever the two was, right?
Right.
And I was like, he's like, well, why are you doing this, Gunny? And I said, well, I said I'm going to TBS. I said I'm a computer guy, and I said, and I made a joke. I was like, if you could fog a mirror, you could get selected this year. And he looks at me and he goes, I put in, and I didn't get selected.
Oh no.
And I thought, fuck. Oh, yeah. Um,
uh,
wow. All right. So where'd you go? What was your first studio station after? Okay, so back TBS. How was TBS for you?
it sucked. You know, I was a gunny,
Mm-hmm.
and and I got promoted to WO, and we got treated like crap. You had these captains
Mm-hmm.
that maybe had 10 years,
Trying to
in
tell you about
the
leadership.
Marine Corps, and they're all basically saying whatever you learned as an enlisted guy, forget about it because now you're an officer. I'm like, that's bullshit. No, whatever you learn as a listed Marine,
Bring it with you.
carries on.
Yeah.
Um, but anyhow, yeah, it sucked, man. Especially in the winter. You freeze shooting a 50 cal, and someone has to peel you off the ground because you're frozen. It's the
Yep.
only time I took a PFT wearing full sweats, a beanie cap, and a full ski mask and gloves while
And still
running the
cold.
3 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's TBS was quite the experience for me too because it was just
Horrible.
I was I had been a gunny for like 3 years, right? And so and I was full of myself, to be quite
And,
honest, because I was a
and
gunny and
you
I was
should have
now a
been. You're
warrant.
a gunny. I
Yeah,
mean,
I was a
you're a
fucking
gunny, of
gunny,
course.
and now I'm a
Yeah,
warrant officer. So what are you telling me about, Captain?
yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah,
I graduated dead middle in my class. Like I've always
yeah. Me
graduated. I've
too.
never been the
Me
top. I've
too.
never been the bottom. I've been right in the middle.
Nope. Me too.
Um,
I was too.
yeah, TBS. Oh boy, there's all kinds of stories about TBS. But what was your first duty station after TBS?
McTissa at
Really?
Camp Pendleton.
Wow.
Yeah, Camp Pendleton, McTissa. And if you know McTissa, it's a little tiny place off of the highway, not really part of Camp Pendleton. You know,
So
it's
I've heard
kind of
about
weird.
it, and I've worked with people who worked out of there, but I've never been there myself.
Yeah, Marine Corps Tactical Communication Support Activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically they were the ones who created
Deployed support, right?
server support. Yeah, deployed support
Yeah,
and server support from afar.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was. Remember Gunny Shifley?
Yes.
He was a
Shape.
McTissa guy, wasn't he?
Think so. I think that's where I
Yeah.
met him. Yeah. Yep.
And then,
Big guy. Big
yeah,
guy. Dancer.
yeah.
Smart
That's
as a whip. Oh my
oh yeah,
god.
yeah. But he taught IP addressing, and I just like I'm
Yes.
stupid.
He was a genius. No,
Yeah,
no, he was one of the geniuses. Yeah,
yeah. He
that I know.
was. Yeah, no, he was Shifley. How was McTissa? Pretty cool.
It was. I had a lot of fun. Um, I deployed a lot. I went on a lot of amphibious ships, a lot of them. I think every amphibious ship I've actually visited. I've
Really?
been on.
I
Yes.
have never set foot on a ship unless
Oh,
it was one in a harbor at
many.
San Diego.
Every
Never.
everyone. And I'm talking about out in the middle of the water too.
Yeah.
Um, and I had GS workers under my belt, GS
Mm-hmm.
10, GS 11, GS 12, that worked for me because they were the Unix experts,
Mm-hmm.
and we went on deployment, what they call it deployment, went on exercises and helped out the Marines get on their servers and get connected. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
That would. I always had weird, quirky duty stations. I never had like a mainstream. The only really mainstream duty station I ever did was probably Second Marine Division deploying to Afghanistan. That was the closest I state came to like mainstream. I mean, Third FSSG, but just that's Okinawa. It's different. It's it's still unique in a way. Um, yeah, I never had even the slightest desire to be on a ship. None, and I never did.
I've been on a couple of real deployments. I mean, not combat deployments, but yeah, I've been on a couple of deployments. For a
Floating the
full
med.
6 months, floating around in the med. Yeah, yeah, that was fun.
Ugh. Um. All right. So this is okay. McTissa Pendleton. So we're talking very late '90s, early 2000s. How many kids you had? Now, how many children do you have total?
Two. I got two boys.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they're
you had them by
my.
then.
Oh yeah, they were they're almost teenagers. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're 39 and 40 now.
Holy shit! I'm 49.
It's crazy. Yeah, the
Wow.
39, 40 now.
And they also in the Corps too, didn't they?
So my first son, he wanted to join the Marine Corps, but he couldn't because he had a brain tumor. Um,
What?
and Yeah, he had a brain tumor, almost died a couple times. So
Holy
he's
shit!
still alive. He's taking a lot of meds now. He doesn't have a brain tumor anymore. They actually took it out. And but he's a Dallas police officer. He's a
Really?
sergeant. He's a sergeant in charge of the jail in
I'll be darned.
Dallas, Texas.
I have
Yes.
a buddy of mine I served on embassy duty who's a Dallas police officer as well. Um, let
And
me
then
shut that window. I got but somebody running
right.
their engine. Um, how did your kids handle you on active duty? Was it just pretty normal?
No, I don't.
Did they struggle with it?
I don't. I don't think we had a normal family. No, my my second son, by the way, he's a captain in the Air Force now,
Okay. What does he
and he's
do?
stationed in Okinawa, Japan. Stationed in Okinawa, Japan.
Awesome. Well, what's his job?
So he was with Special Forces. He was a pararescuer his first
Those dudes
10 or
are
so
amazing.
years.
Those
Yeah,
dudes are amazing
he was one of those guys.
and
Yes,
humble.
and deployed multiple times in Iraq and Afghanistan,
Yeah.
multiple times.
I,
And
I
now
think out of
he's
all the special ops guys, those guys in many ways are the most incredible, but yet most humble ones out of all the branches.
yeah, he's so he was a PJ and
That's amazing.
stands for para
Yep.
jumper.
Yep.
And so he's a PJ, and then he went through the officer program. I convinced him, I'm like, dude, you can't be listed all the time. Your body can't take it. You need to be an officer. You need to be a manager. He's like, I don't want to do that. I want to be in the action. I'm like, trust me, you need to do it. So he's a captain now. He's going to be picking up major here, I think next year,
Very cool.
and yeah, almost retired now.
Still in the PJ community?
Yes. So he's a special operations officer.
Okay.
So he works with the Green Berets and the PJs and the Recon Rangers. Yeah,
It's the Green Berets fall in my mind, at least in my experience, they fall second behind the PJs as far as just being humble about who they are and what they do.
yeah,
I remember when I was at MARSOC G6, General Halick was the first CG of MARSOC, Um, and he told us flat out. He goes, and it's it. Later, I worked around Marsoc, and I'm sure if anybody listens to this, I'm going to piss them off. But the culture has changed completely at Marsoc.
Yeah.
But General Haley told you, he goes, "You're fucking Marines. There's nothing special about you. You're a Marine. You got shitloads of money, but you're still a Marine. Don't ever forget it."
Yeah.
And I worked around Marsoc as a contractor later, and the
Mm.
environment completely changed. And I mean, they do it. They're awesome. They're amazing dudes. But there was a definite difference between the first iteration of Marsoc and what they become as the Raiders. Um, God bless them. I couldn't do it, but um, PJs are cool though. Yeah, PJs are awesome.
They are. They are.
Um,
He has stories forever. Yeah. But
oh, I bet. I bet.
anyhow.
All right. So post McTissa, I'm assuming you, and then you went to the schoolhouse.
Yes. Yep.
How,
29 Palms.
how'd you like that?
Being at the schoolhouse.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a challenge, but I enjoyed it because it was a challenge. Um, being with Delta Company was a very unique, rewarding experience
Mm-hmm.
because I got to work with people like you, like yourself. You know, some really smart instructors who had talent that could teach a trade, and not just a trade, but life experiences with young Marines, and I loved watching that. As the academic officer, training officer, whatever you want to call it, stepping back and watching you guys was rewarding. I thought it was really really cool. What was challenging about it is that we just didn't have enough personnel. I don't know
No.
if you remember this, but holy crap, the field was changing so much. The data field was changing so much.
Mm-hmm.
It was going all different directions, and they were creating MOSs,
Yep.
merging MOSs, creating schools, creating curriculum, creating academic programs, and it
Remember
was
the iterations of the data chiefs course
yes,
over and over and
yes,
over? Oh my lord.
yep, it was a headache. It was
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that time
Oh,
period was it was challenging. It was challenging for officers and enlisted folks.
there was
Both.
a colonel. I won't say his name in case he ever listens or people listen who know him, but he was an asshole. You know who
He
I'm talking about.
was. He
You
was.
know who I'm talking about.
Was. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
And
he
I
was.
remember
He still is.
he told the Chiefs course.
Yep.
He goes, You're just a bunch
I
of
know.
trained monkeys."
Yes. Yep. I
What the
know.
fuck, sir? Are you?
I've had personal discussions with him in my
Oh,
office and his office. And as a warrant officer, a lot of times I didn't hold back.
oh yeah.
Like I said, I'm
That's
lucky
the
I'm still
glory of being
here.
a warrant officer.
Yeah.
You don't have to have to.
Yeah, I'm lucky
I
I'm still here.
I I
What?
I, I had a conversation with one of my G6s one time, sir, and I told him, I said, sir, I said, I may not be it was Colonel Griggs. I said, I may not be the smartest guy that you have ever had work for you. I said, I'm certainly not. I said, but the Marine Corps pays me for two things. They pay me to provide you solutions to problems, and develop solutions that will solve your problems. I said, we can argue all day long about the quality of my solutions.
Right.
I said, but the other thing they pay me for is my opinion, and
Yeah.
you'll always get that.
Yeah.
He and I got along great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
Yeah. Him and I, that person, and I had discussions about Toll.
Toll was an amazing dude.
When Toll put in for warrant officer,
Yes,
he basically called him a piece of shit. And I'm
yes.
like, you don't even know what you're talking about.
You have no idea.
Yeah, you have no idea. And I convinced him to write a letter for him, and he got selected.
Lieutenant
Um,
Colonel retired.
yeah,
Yeah, Toll's my hero. Toll's an amazing
he's
guy.
awesome.
I used to slop up gravy at the little what was that little cafe by the battalion at 29 Palms? That
Oh,
little
yeah.
74 cafe.
Holy crap! I forgot what it's called.
Ah, we'd
It's
slop up
still there
gravy
too.
with bacon. We didn't just
Yeah,
eat it to get fat, but yeah, Toll. I remember it was cool too because Toll and I were gunnies together there. He went to become a warrant officer. Then he went to Okinawa. Then I went to become a warrant officer. I went to Okinawa. And when one day we were talking, he goes, Daryl, he goes, you have to realize you can. There's many types of warrant officers, chief warrant officers out there.
Yep.
He goes, but if you want to be really good, you need to understand MagTaf communications, not just data.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
that's why
You
he's
need to know the
lieutenant colonel
big
retired.
picture.
Yeah,
Big picture.
yeah, big picture, and that's why he's lieutenant colonel retired.
Yeah.
Flat out, he's just an amazing guy. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I met some amazing people in the Marine Corps. Oh my God.
well, yeah, and you know, there's so many of them out of Access.
Yes.
Ship, remember Ship, Gunny Ship?
Yep. I remember ship.
One of the smartest people I've ever run into. Shifley, the
Yeah.
Bay.
Yeah.
Um, God, man, I'm forgetting
You
people.
remember you remember Fitcher,
Lavoy,
right? You remember Fitcher?
Fitcher, Fritcher, yep.
Lisa
Oh yeah,
Lisa Fisher?
yep.
You know who she is now, right?
She's captain, isn't she?
No. She's the only Chief Warrant Officer 5 female
Well, she
in the
stayed five.
Confield.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I went to Lejeune and she had been in division before me, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I remember Fritcher. Yeah, there's a lot of people that really stand out from 29 Palms. It's
Yeah.
the staff that was there. It really was.
Yeah.
Real. Yeah, I was humbled to be there because I was semi-retarded and
Yeah. But
only you
but
know.
but but you had your own unique skills.
Well, and
And I saw that, and so did a lot of other people. And that's
well,
how you got
advanced
selected
course was a
officer.
unique environment too. Quite honestly, because I never taught the young guys. I always
Right.
taught the staff and chosen officers.
Right.
In fact, I remember the first class I taught was to a bunch of master gunnies. What the fuck? What? That was so intimidating to teach a bunch of com chief master guns, and
Yeah.
they just fortunately they were kind to me
Yeah.
because I was dumb. I didn't. I mean, what was I telling? I was teaching about information assurance stuff, and they
Yeah.
didn't care. They could care
Well,
less about it.
it was a brand new MOS. I
Yeah.
mean, there wasn't anything available. I mean,
Uh.
you jumped into it at birth
Well,
when
and
it
that's
first started.
so Kevin Black. I remember he goes. We got selected. We got selected on 9/11. The message was released at like 9:04 in the morning. Um, and I had asked him. I said, where should I go, Master Guns? He goes, well, you could go to the schoolhouse. Like, are you nuts? I don't, I don't know a
Screw that.
thing about this job. He goes, who else does? He goes, and by the way, where are you gonna have the opportunity to learn?
Right.
And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, fairly smart. So yeah, I'll go to the schoolhouse. Um, definitely a rewarding. And I will say though, I wish I had had the opportunity in many ways to do the job before I taught it. Because
That just doesn't happen though.
no, it
It
doesn't.
just doesn't happen.
It's not how it works. But
Not in the Marine
um,
Corps it doesn't.
no.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm trying to remember after 29 Palms. Where'd you go after 29 Palms?
Went to Camp Lejeune,
Okay,
back to my own stopping grounds. So my
nice.
first duty station and my last duty station was Camp Lejeune.
It's funny because I followed you to Camp Lejeune. After that too, I went to Camp Lejeune.
Yeah.
Well, which unit at Lejeune?
I was at um the oh my God, not Second Marine Division. I was at the G6.
Okay,
Um uh 2MEF G6.
2FU6.
Yeah. 2MEF G6. Yep. Over at the H1, the
Yep,
hospital, the old hospital building.
yep. Oh
Yep.
yeah, man. Small. And when I went to division, I was there on I was at H1 also, first floor down the hall down at Division G6,
Yeah.
and then they
Yep.
sent me down to uh, Com Company,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you what, I learned a newfound respect for lieutenants when I became a platoon OIC because
How's
it was
that?
24/7 bullshit.
Yeah.
It never stopped.
Yeah.
It was either a CMR or training or something
Yep.
after work that some guy was drag racing his car down the
Yep.
whatever. There was always something going on. It was for
Yes.
6 months. It was probably the longest 6 months of my life as a
Yeah.
platoon OIC, and it was always the same handful of people
Yep.
that I had to deal with. But
Always at
um,
10%.
yeah, oh yeah. So as you approach retirement, what were you thinking?
So, so let me tell you how I got to retirement.
Because this
So
is unique too.
it is. So I went to Camp Lejeune and I spent less than a year at Camp Lejeune. Why do you ask? First of all, at Camp Lejeune, I was supposed to get selected for Chief Warrant Officer 5.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the running. I mean, I was on the top of the list. Um, but someone else got selected. Um, my buddy did. My buddy got selected.
Who was that again?
And
Who's
I'm
you?
sorry.
Who picked up the five?
It was Mike Mann.
Yep.
Mike Mann got selected for 5. And this is a reason why. Um, that I can tell. I can't prove this.
Yeah.
Can't.
You never. Who knows?
But the senior member of the board um, did not like me because I basically burned bridges with him. I did him wrong. I really did, and I don't regret it. That's a whole other story. That's a whole other story.
I
But I
bet.
think when he saw my name on the list, he was like, "Oh hell no, this guy's not going to get selected." So Mike Mann did. He got selected. So
He
during that
retired a major,
same
didn't he?
time, I'm sorry,
He retired a major, didn't he? An
no,
LDO major?
no, Chief Warrant
He
Officer
stayed
5.
five? Okay.
Yep, yep. Bad choice. Bad choice for the Marine Corps. But let's not get into that. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk bad
Yeah.
bad
I know.
juju. But so during that same time, I was gonna get LASIK surgery on my eyes. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to wear glasses anymore. And I thought, oh man, this is awesome. And I basically got put on top of the list because I knew people. And when I got examined, the doctor discovered I had RP, retinitis pigmentosa. And he basically told me, dude, you are legally blind. I'm like, what do you mean I'm legally blind? I can't be legally blind. And he did some tests, and I'm like, oh shit, I really can't see what I think I see. And so immediately, I could not deploy. I could not even carry a weapon. And I'm like, well, what do I do? He says, you're going to retire. You're going through a medical board right now. So
Wow.
months later, I was forced out of the Marine Corps. Um, it was probably the most stressful, um, saddest, depressing time of my entire life.
I can
Was
imagine because when I retired,
those
it was my choice.
couple
You had
months.
no choice.
Now, see, the reason why I went to Camp Lejeune was to deploy, to go on deployment, to go in a combat zone. I'd never been to a combat zone. Never. I've been all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
but never in a combat zone. So I was getting ready to deploy. You know, like within 6 months, and it was pulled. The rug was pulled out from underneath me. So not only
Yeah.
did I get passed over for 5, I'm also told I'm legally blind and I cannot stay in the Marine Corps. So yeah,
That
so
that lack of control. Because as a three
yeah,
or a four, you have a lot of control,
yeah,
and then not and to lose that control, yeah, that's wow.
yep, yeah.
So
So I went through a
did you
medical
stumble
board.
into the GS job, or were you looking to do something else, or how did you end up in the GS world?
So so I retired from Camp Lejeune and we drove across country back to our home here in Joshua Tree, California. And for a couple months, I basically moped around and had to take medication for depression and had to get my life back together basically. And I got to a point where it's like, you know what, I can't sit around and just do nothing. I just
Yeah,
I can't enjoy just doing nothing. So I said I need to get a job. So I applied for multiple GS jobs on 29 Palms, and that's when I got selected to be a tech controller.
that's right. You taught yeah.
I don't
And
know anything about tech control.
it was the as I recall too, it was the first time they were taking like Lance Corporals as tech controllers too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Which was a
yeah, something
whole
like that.
drama in their core about, oh my
Oh
God, they're
my
taking mad
God.
corporals as tech controllers.
So I was the first
That's right.
civilian instructor to be a tech controller, and I knew nothing about the job.
Speaking of learning
So,
curves and
so you
steep,
talk about a learning curve. Within 3 months, I learned a job enough to teach the entire course.
yeah, yeah, if yeah, I learned early if I wanted to to associate with a smart person who could help me, find a tech controller
Yeah,
because they can think
yeah, the smart
logically,
people. Yeah,
they can troubleshoot.
yeah.
Data guys are
That's what it's all about. It's all about troubleshooting.
yeah,
Yes,
no, absolutely, and to be quite honest, data guys are the worst at troubleshooting. They're
turn it off, turn it
schizophrenic.
back on.
They just yeah, reboot it, and then we'll try this,
Yeah,
we'll try this, we'll try this. And when you finally figure out what it was, when you finally fix it, you go, well, what was the problem?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it's started working now.
It works now. Yeah, yeah.
Ah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So I got really good at being a tech controller. I even created the advanced course. I actually created it for staff NCOs, and I won a lot of awards, got a lot of money, and I got bored. I
Really?
got bored of being a tech controller, and I was like, "There's got to be something else," and that's when I got into cybersecurity.
Now, was it tech controller as a GS?
Yes, I was a
Okay.
GS9. Believe it or not, GS9.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, for 5 years, I was a GS9.
And then you went to base G6, didn't you?
No, no. Before that, I went to McTOG, Marine Corps Tactical Operations Group. So I
And
became the
Quantico.
first IA. No, right there, 29 Palms. Yep. There's a
McCall,
little
I
unit
don't know
called
about this.
McTOG. A little unit called McTOG.
Huh.
Basically, they did experimental stuff for tactical communications.
Reminds
And
me of McDistick, kind of.
yes, very close in McTissa. That's why I wanted the job. But I got stuck in as being the IAM, the Information Assurance Manager. I
Hmm.
knew nothing about IA,
Oh, yeah.
Daryl. I knew nothing about IA. I never was an IA.
Yeah.
So that's another learning curve. I was not only a specialist, I was the manager. I was the one in charge. And I had some smart people that worked for me. Really did. One of them was Travis Harris.
Yep.
And Travis, if you're listening,
I taught him.
man, I owe a lot to you, dude.
If I recall correctly, I taught him when he came to the school.
Travis Harris is a genius. He's
Yeah.
another genius that I've met in my life. And Travis, dude, man, you're a godsend. And but I learned my job, as IAM, and I did well in it. What was tough about that job was telling people no,
Hmm.
and not just ordinary people. We're talking about high-ranking officers, um, lieutenant colonels, majors, telling him no, you can't do that because it was experimental. I mean,
Yeah.
McDog was all about experimenting. I'm like, can't do that. It's not safe. You can't stick a thumb drive in your laptop. You can't do that. It's against the rules. And they looked at me like, who the hell are you? And I'm like, dude, I didn't hatch yesterday. Okay, I
Yeah.
spent
Been
26
around.
years in the Marine Corps. You know, I know what I'm talking about. But yeah, that was a tough duty. But then after that, I applied for the G6 job.
That's right.
So I went from GS9 to GS10, and then I got picked up as a GS. No, not GS10. There is no GS10. I went from
11.
9 to 11, and then got picked up as a 12 at the base G6,
Yeah.
GS12.
Huh.
And then I
Yeah, I
spent a
was.
few years there, and I got picked up as a GS13, and I was the cybersecurity manager for the entire base.
It reminds me now. It's funny because how I ended up at McSess was because the first set of orders I got cut was to base G6 29 Palms.
Mhm.
And I called them. I said, "Hey, I'm Staff Sergeant Scabina. I'm headed out there as your IA guy." And they said, "What? Well, what's IA? We
Mhm.
got a server team in the back."
Yeah.
And that's when I went to Master Guns Black and said, "Master Guns, I said, I can't. This is stupid. If I'm going to go out there, now I'm like, again, I'm going to be in an MOS. I don't know my job. They're going to be doing something else. That's when he said,
Yeah.
well, what about the schoolhouse? That's right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. But good, interesting group at base G6. Let's put it that way.
So my goal, um, in my Marine Corps career, when I first visited 29 Palms, my goal was to work at the G6.
Really?
I wanted to work there as an enlisted person, um, but then that never happened. But my ultimate goal was to work at the G6
Hmm.
at 29 Palms specifically, and I was
Because
able to
you,
do
you
that as
fell
a
in love
GS.
with the high desert out there.
I did, I did,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was a GS-12 and a GS-13 at the G6. Yeah,
What year did you retire from that job? And retire.
it was 2000. It's 2018.
Okay.
So 2018 July. So there's a story behind that too. So as my RP progressed and I got blinder and blinder, I'm like 90% blind right now. But I can still see very, very little. But I can see clear. But my view is very, very small, very tiny.
Hmm.
Like if I look at my photo on the screen, I can look at me, but I can't see you. So you see
Interesting.
my eyes shifting back and forth, so I can see
Huh.
the whole screen. So I scan a lot. I scan things because my view is very tiny. I don't have any peripheral vision, and I don't have night vision. I can only really see during the day. But anyhow, so as my vision got worse, I couldn't do my job. I mean, I couldn't even catch up on my emails or
Hmm.
or read the documentation I had to read to be an information assurance cybersecurity guy. So I said, "Hey, I need to retire." They're like, "You can't." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't?" It says you have to be at this minimal age to retire. I'm like, "What is that age?" And they said, it's 56. I'm like,
How
"All
close
right."
were you?
Like a year out. So I said, "Okay, I'm putting in my retirement package. And when I turn 56, June 24th, I'm retiring." So 1 July of that year, I was done. I was
Wow.
56 years old and I retired. Yep. I had to because I just couldn't keep up. So I got a little pension from, being Chief Warrant Officer 4, and a big pension from Chief Warrant Officer 4, and then a little pension from GS-13.
I'm assuming the VA disability is pretty good as well.
Yes. So I can't complain.
Yeah.
Dude, I make more money now than I ever did when I worked.
And
I hate to say
so
this, but I make a lot of money because I get
so
full Social Security.
wow. So yeah, you it's always been interesting talking to you because you I mean the circumstances weren't ideal obviously, but you like
Yeah,
retired at an age where you can still enjoy your life, you can still travel,
I do
and yeah, and you've traveled a lot since you've retired.
a lot, a lot. So my wife Judy and I, we spend all our money on traveling. We don't have a nice car. We don't have a castle for a house. We have a comfortable house. We have a working car, but all our money is traveling.
Yeah, it's
And
like about life
because
experiences, right?
that because you can't take your money with you. You can't take
Nope.
material things, but your
Nope.
memories
Oh
will
yeah.
live as long as your brain lives. So we've been to 52 countries so far.
No
52.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah. We've traveled around the world and we're not done yet. We're,
Have you
we're
been to
going to
Africa?
Australia and New Zealand in April.
That New Zealand would be cool. Have you been to Africa?
No, I've been to Northern Africa in the Marine Corps, went to Tunisia,
Okay.
and yeah, that's the only part of Africa I've been to. I want to go to South Africa.
I did a
Yeah,
couple tours in West Africa,
that
Garden
must have been
Embassy,
tough.
which was pretty cool. Yeah, it's
Was it? Did
second.
you like it?
So it's funny because I did 16 months in Conakry, Guinea, which is where the kind of the bulge of West Africa comes out, right above
Yeah.
Monrovia in Sierra Leone. And then I did 18 months in Geneva, Switzerland, and then I came back for a
Mm,
year to
that's expensive.
yeah, I came back for a
Nice
year to
country though.
oh beautiful. Um,
Yeah.
spent a year in Bamako, Mali, and don't get me wrong. I mean, don't Geneva was my bedroom window faced Mont Blanc over Lake Geneva.
Wow.
I mean, when we ran our PFT, we ran from France to Switzerland. We started in France, ended in Switzerland, running right at Mont Blanc, slightly
That's
downhill
cool.
because we picked it. Um, but the African tours were by far better.
Oh wow.
Just the
Yeah. We.
community was insanely tight.
Yeah.
The Marine House was the hub of the American community in the country.
Wow.
It was truly phenomenal. So if you get a chance, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
It's
a crazy
on my
place.
bucket list.
It's a crazy.
Yeah.
I remember when they had the Civil War in Sierra Leone. You had people coming across the border into Guinea to get away, and there's kids with missing hands. They just it's a life is does not mean the same thing that it does to us in many
No,
places in the world.
doesn't.
Um, what's your favorite place you've been?
So Judy and I's favorite place is Rome, Italy.
Oh yeah.
Why is that? Because there's so much history in Rome. And I'm not a religious person, and I'm not a history buff either. But when you go to Rome, Italy, and you live there, I mean, we actually lived there for like a month at a time, and you get to feel the power of Rome. I mean, it's hard to explain. It's not just the food, it's not just the people, it's the environment, it's the historic landmark of the world. And I don't know, it's a really neat feeling. It's a good fit for us. We love the Italian language, we love the Italian people, we love Italian food,
So
just
just
like the environment.
just up the coast of I never made it to Rome, but just up the coast of Italy, when you get up towards
Naples?
Torino, there's a uh, there's a portion of the coast called Cinque Terre. Did you ever make it there?
No, we did not. It was too far away. It was
If
it
you
was too
ever get a
far.
chance, if you ever get
Yeah,
a chance, it absolutely. There's no vehicles allowed in the town. The town there's a picture of it from like 1895
yeah.
and 1985, and there's literally
Same.
except for power lines, it's the same.
I know. I seen
Um,
pictures.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
where do you want to go? Like that you've never been yet? Besides, like we talk about New Zealand and Australia, but is there someplace you really want to get to?
So always my goal, always in life, was to visit the pyramids in Egypt.
Okay.
Three times we were on cruises that was supposed to go to Egypt and Cairo, and all three times they were canceled because there was a coup, there's some kind of a riot, there's some kind of a governmental thing going on, and all three times it got canceled. So I always wanted to visit the Sphinx and the pyramids in Egypt, but never got a chance to.
You know, I never could convince my boss to let me go, but they always had a billet for, I don't even know what it was for, out of Okinawa to Mongolia.
Mm,
It was an officer and a staff NCO for
yeah,
something. Mongolia, I think, would be really cool. I think it'd be
yeah,
fascinating.
it would, it would.
Um,
Yep, never been Mongolia. No.
have you ever managed to get yourself really sick overseas?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. Almost died.
Holy
No,
smokes, really?
seriously, I almost died.
Wow.
Um, this past summer. So Judy and I, on her 60th birthday, 60th year birthday, she said, I want to go to Europe and I want to go to 17 countries. And we did, went to 17 countries.
Wow.
One of the countries was England. So
Okay.
um, we went to, oh my God, what's the name of that palace? Buckingham Palace.
Okay.
So we went to Buckingham Palace. In order to get to Buckingham, you have to either cross the busy highway or go underneath this pedestrian tunnel that goes
Okay.
underneath the highway, which is the easiest way. Well, we went in this tunnel, and supposedly there was like this homeless shelter in there that was just really nasty. And everyone walked around it, and I almost walked right through it because I couldn't see, you know? I had my cane and everything, but I couldn't see where I was going. Apparently, I breathed in this nasty stuff and whatever it was, some kind of disease or whatever. And when I exited the tunnel, I coughed for at least a half an hour. Coughed, sneezed, boogers coming out of my nose, everything. And I was like, what
Wow.
was. That I thought it was gassed. You know how you go through the gas chamber,
Oh yeah.
boot camp, and that feeling. It was like that, and it was like, oh, this is horrible. So finally recovered from that, and we went on another cruise for a week, and I felt kind of weird. It was like almost like a slight flu, bad cold kind of thing, and I'm like, I'll be fine. I can
Oh,
bounce
you picked
back.
up some Legionnaire's disease. Good Lord.
Picked up something, and it got so bad. I was in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany, and I thought I was going to die. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't poop, couldn't do anything, nothing.
Wow.
And I uh, I was getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to go to Stuttgart, Germany, and go to the Navy hospital, which doesn't exist? We found out that they really don't have a medical center in Stuttgart.
Yeah, it's at
Um,
Lonsdale.
yeah. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So Judy got an online doctor. Let me tell you, before you even say anything, this is the best thing in the world. You can get online, get an appointment with a doctor that can be in Rome, Italy, which in this case it was, and they can diagnose your problem and prescribe medicine. And you can literally walk down the street and get it. So I made an
That's cool.
appointment with this Italian doctor who spoke English, and he knew right away what was wrong with me. He says, you have a bad um, sinus, a viral sinus infection that affected your brain and everything in your head, and you need really strong antibiotics. So he prescribed antibiotics. He sent me a PDF file that was written in German and English. I went down to the front desk, had it printed, walked about 3 or 4 blocks down the road to the pharmacy, gave him that, and they gave me medicine. The medicine only cost $8. The online visit cost $50, and in a week I was fine.
Wow.
Yep,
You,
it was
the
horrible.
whole the whole COVID lockdown stuff must have drove you nuts.
It did. It did. It we were stuck. We couldn't do anything. But so
Where were
so
you stuck
here's
at?
another story. Here's another story about the COVID. We were the last ones, the last cruise ship that that got back on land when COVID started.
Really?
Yes. We went to Florida, got off the ship, and as soon as we got off the ship, that's when they stopped all cruises. That's when they deemed it, the COVID-19 pandemic. We didn't even know what it was. And I think we had COVID because when we got home for like 3 weeks, we couldn't do anything but sit on the couch and sleep.
Huh.
We couldn't go for a walk. We couldn't eat much. We didn't know what it was. We thought it
Yeah.
was the flu, you know.
Oh.
But
Huh.
we never got tested positive for COVID. Never.
Huh. Let me flip the lights on real quick. It's starting to get dark
Right.
here. Oh, there. I'm not quite so pasty white anymore. Um, man, that's so you have grandkids now too, don't you? Because I
Yeah.
see pictures all the
I
time.
have a grandson that just turned 17. Oh
Really?
my God, 17, and then a granddaughter that just turned 4 years old.
Oh, she's adorable too. She
She
really is.
is. She's a
Wow.
pretty, very beautiful girl, very smart. She's learning 3 languages: English, Thai, and Japanese.
Wow.
And and she's just smart as a whip. Yep. And they're in Okinawa, Japan right now.
You just got back from Oki, didn't you?
Not me. No. We're going there this summer. Yeah, we'll probably in July. We're going to go visit them.
Okay. Um. So I think I know what your answer is going to be, but as you reflect back on your Marine Corps career specifically, is there something that you didn't do that you really wanted to?
Yeah, I wanted to be deployed. I wanted to go in a combat zone. I
That's
wanted to
what I
get that
figured your
combat
answer would be.
action ribbon. You know, that's why I joined the Marine Corps.
Yep.
I wanted a combat action ribbon.
Yep. No,
I
I
didn't necessarily want to, get shot or get a Purple Heart, but I wanted to be involved. Yeah,
I I I had an assumption that was going to be your answer because don't get me wrong, I did not necessarily want to be there, and I retired shortly thereafter because I never wanted to go back. but I
Yeah.
was glad that I was able to go because who the
Right.
hell joins the Marine Corps who doesn't want to go, right?
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
just that's just what you do, and I
Yep.
knew that if I didn't do it, it would have bugged me for a long time. So I'm glad I was able to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
is,
Yep.
is there anything about your career overall that you wish you'd have done differently? That you wish you'd have taken a different approach, or you'd have pursued something else, or are you pretty satisfied with what you accomplished? Because you've accomplished a lot.
I'm pretty satisfied. I really didn't expect to retire as a chief warrant officer. Didn't expect to retire again as a GS-13. I just didn't. That wasn't my goal. My goal was to get as much rank as I can and stay in as long as I can. I think my ultimate goal was to stay in for 30 years, but I couldn't do that. But but yeah, I think I did pretty well. I think I accomplished everything I wanted to.
Oh yeah.
But sad thing is, in order to get to that point, you have to sacrifice stuff, and some of the stuff I sacrificed was family time,
Hmm.
with my sons, them growing up. And so, if I regret anything, regret is spending more time with my sons. School projects and sporting events and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so when I retired, my daughters were I retired in 13, so they were fairly young. My oldest biological daughter was just old enough that year deployment really impacted her a lot,
Yeah.
which is one reason I decided to retire because I knew I
Yep.
couldn't do it again. It wouldn't be good for her.
Yep.
So I'm lucky in that the vast majority of their childhood, I wasn't on active duty. I was home every day and all that kind of good stuff. So
Yeah.
um, if you could go back to 17-year-old Rob, well, what would you tell him, or would you tell him anything?
Um, don't underestimate yourself. Um, Never quit. And if you don't ask, the answer will always be no.
True.
And always take chances. And when I was younger, I never thought I would reach 50. But here I am at 62. So I would tell him, hey, you're gonna go past 60. So take care of yourself. You know, you're gonna have an old body, but you
Yeah.
need to take care of yourself. But I think the most important thing is be yourself. Don't don't try to be like the Joneses. Whoever you are uniquely you, and don't ever try to change, and and just never give up. Yep.
You're and I'm catching from your shirt too. You're big into ham radio, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's my call sign. WO4 ROB.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I am into ham radio. I'm an extra. So it goes technician, general, and extra. I'm an extra. So I'm one of the top ranking ones. And I was the president for a local ham radio operated club for 5+ years, and I'm still into ham radio. So yeah, I that's one of my hobbies
Is there a hobby that you is there something you really want to do that you haven't done yet?
that I haven't done. You know what I always wanted to do. I always wanted to do paragliding. It's where you have a parachute and
Yep.
you have this big fan on your back and you fly around
That would be cool.
um, with that. I always wanted to do that, and I was going to actually take classes and actually, fly around like that. But my disability, my sight and whatnot, and plus I just got too damn old because you got to be young, because you have to run with that thing on your back
True.
before you can take off.
Have you ever
And
skydived?
yes, once.
How was it?
so so my first of all, my son does it for a living. My younger son,
Yeah.
he's a captain in the Air Force. And so I skydived once, and I did it when I was 50 years old, in Florida, and it was a great experience. Um, it was almost as if I was a bird, a free bird flying around, and I
Hmm.
thought it was really, really cool. But to be honest, I'll never do it again. Just like running a marathon, did it once, that was enough. I mean, it's too risky. Jumping out of an airplane with a parachute, it's just too risky. But I had to do it once.
Do you have a fear of heights?
No, not at all. Nope.
Yeah, I'd like to try it, but I'm scared shitless of heights, to be quite honest.
Oh, Jesus. You'll probably pass out.
Probably, probably. Um,
Yeah.
what what's your general? So I quite honestly, I found, at least in my personal opinion, for the most part, it took me about 5 years after retiring to really start to discover that there was. I don't know, the Marine Corps is a very closed environment, and
It is.
people come from all kinds of different directions,
Yep.
and they come from all kinds of different backgrounds, um,
Yep.
but they're generally the same in opinion and thought. It's a very confirmation bias vacuum of, for the most part. It took me about 5 years to really realize that there's more going on. Quite honestly, my opinion on all manner of things has changed dramatically since I retired. Have you found that to be your experience?
So, what I've discovered is that humans, no matter what their background is, what color they are, what language they speak, what their upbringing is, they're all the same. Humans have the same goal, and that goal is to be loved and to love and to be successful and to be happy. And it doesn't matter where you go. It's the same everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Judy and I have traveled the whole world, and we discovered that people are not so much different than you or I. 90% of human beings are the same. There's always that
True.
10% though
Oh
that
yeah.
is not. You know, but
Um,
um, but yeah, the world is smaller now, and I have a much more respect for Earth. Um, and I've discovered that humanity is like one big family, and we just don't open up our minds and we don't open up our hearts to discover that. And once you have an open mind and you just stop and listen and learn from others, then will you discover that.
are you generally optimistic about the future?
You talk about our future,
Just
like
future in
like
general.
oh, I can't wait for the future. I think the future is going to be awesome. So there's a lot to come for humanity,
Oh yeah.
not just for the United States, but for the entire world. Um, I think because the world is getting smaller and people are starting to mingle, is probably the best word, to merge, with each other, and having more respect for each other. Um, uh, Humans will be extinct, whether we do it to ourselves or not.
Oh yeah.
But we're not going to be here forever.
And that is
We're going
that
to be,
like 99.9% of all animals have gone extinct.
yeah,
Um,
and we will too. We're part of that.
yep.
But yeah, I look forward to the future. I really do. I'm excited. I'm excited about the future.
Our um, so I've got a couple more questions. I'm going to wrap this up. My wife is trying to find some stuff, and I need to help her. But
Okay.
um, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would be interested in getting on the record?
Yes. So, like I said, my call sign is WO4ROB, Warrant Officer for Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was lucky enough to get that from the ARRL, the FCC.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so what I do for a hobby is electronics. I love electronics. I love microcontrollers, and I actually invent stuff. Um, One of the things that I have invented was something like this. It's a ESP32 microcontroller with a screen and a little GPS module and a little speaker and whatnot. And I make stuff like this.
That's
And
cool.
if you want to learn what I do and more about me, you can either email me wo4rob
Yep.
at gmail.com, or you can go to my website
That's cool.
wo4rob.com, and you can learn a little bit about what my hobbies are and what I do. Also, I created my own little logo, so I'm a real geek. So what this logo is I call it the Green Monster, and we talked about this a little bit. When I became a drill instructor, I have an altered person inside of me. It's called the Green Monster, and but what this is it's a diode with a battery and a switch and a green LED. It turned into a face. So this is
Huh.
my logo that I use.
Have you turned it into a tattoo?
Not yet. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about getting a tattoo. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so I do ham radio stuff.
Hmm.
This is like a little walkie-talkie. Um, this is used like a walkie-talkie on what they call 2 meters. I also have a bigger radio that does HF, high frequency, where you can talk around the world. That's another hobby I have. Um, and I also have a Facebook page, and you can follow me. My Facebook page is Rob Clout, ROBCLOOT,
Okay.
Rob Clout. And I got all kinds of posts out there. I post almost every day. And
Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I follow
yep,
your personal page, but I didn't know about the other one. I don't know
yep,
why.
Rob
Not paying
Clout.
attention.
Yep, I have pictures of world travels and what I love sunrises and sunsets. So there's a lot of that out there. Um, I always post about Pizza Friday
Oh
because
yeah,
in fact we're gonna have pizza tonight. It's Friday. It's Pizza
it's
Friday.
Friday. You're supposed to. Yeah, it's
So yeah,
pizza in Italy though. Pizza, that stuff's good.
so it's different.
Oh yeah.
Pizza in Italy is very flat.
Hmm.
Um, doesn't have a lot of sauce on it.
Nope.
And very little toppings. Very little. Basically, it's a poor man's meal, is
Hmm.
how they invented it. But it's still delicious because it's real food. It's not
Yeah,
this processed stuff you get in the United States. So yeah, we totally
absolutely.
enjoy Italian pizza.
Is there is there someone that you think I would be a really good person to talk to?
Yes,
Someone who's like had a life that you're like that guy needs to
yes,
get it down, or that gal for it doesn't matter to me.
yep. A couple people. You've already talked to um, Travis Harris, but I can't find that video with your interview with him. So if you can, send me the link.
Okay.
Um, but a couple people we talked about him. Patrick Toll is another
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Um,
So as I
another one.
recall,
I don't know if you remember.
Travis was I did a different I was doing a different podcast a couple years
Yes,
back for
right,
guys or Marines transitioning, and
right.
Travis was part of that. But I've never had a conversation with him about his life. So good recommendation.
Yep.
Pat Toll, who else?
Scott Voigts. I don't know if you remember Scott Voigts. So Scott Voigts retired as a lieutenant colonel, and he was a biker. He was a Harley guy, and he was at McSess. He was a captain at the time, and he's a rebel, but very intelligent person, and succeeded in retiring as a lieutenant colonel. He's an interesting person.
Okay,
Um, Another one is Neil Bray. I don't know if you know Neil Bray,
I know the
but
name.
he just retired as Chief Warrant Officer 5, and he was a TechCon dude. He was a TechCon MOS person,
Mhm.
and just recently retired as Chief Warrant Officer 5. He has some interesting stuff to say.
I
He's another genius.
I have to say
That guy is smart.
I gotta swear that we've crossed paths, but I'd have to see
Yes,
his face to make the connection.
I'm sure you. Yeah, yeah. Look him up. And also Alyssa Fritcher.
Oh yeah,
You have to talk to her.
yep.
Not only that she's a chief officer 5 in our field, but she's a female.
Hmm.
And I did fitness reports for her, and we had some
Yeah.
discussions.
She was instructor,
Which,
sergeant Fritcher. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, we had some heart to heart discussions together when she was staff NCO and I was a warrant officer. So she did really good. She's chief warrant officer 5 now, doing really well.
Damn right. Well, Rob,
Um,
I'm gonna let you go. I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to get to know you
yeah,
better. It's it's always fun. It's always I always learn something. I don't think I've ever walked away from having doing one of these things, and I haven't done that many, but I've never walked away thinking, I knew all that stuff. No, not even close. Not even
yeah.
close. You're a tremendous individual. You've had a tremendous impact on so many people's lives, including my
Oh,
own.
thanks.
And um, that's why it's never an ordinary conversation. It isn't. It's always cool. It's always
Thanks for
learning.
the invite.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm gonna hit the stop button here real quick.
Okay.
We'll still be here, but recording will be stopped.
Okay.